Hey, my name is Cal, and I love side projects. In game dev, I like to have an A project and a B project. If I ever hit a snag, get bored, or otherwise just want a break from game dev, I instead just take a break from project A and work on project B. By doing this, I'm able to be a bit more productive and enjoy game dev a lot more. Currently, my main project, and what I've been showing on this channel, is Amazon. But briefly in my last devlog, I mentioned my old projects on itch.io. I'm not super proud of all my previous games, and they can be pretty scuffed. Anyway, as I was recording that, I had already started work on remastering the first game I ever released, 1000 Rooms. Real quick, I do want to thank y'all for over 150 subscribers and several thousand views on my last devlog. I know I don't have many videos out right now, but trust me, I'm working on more and I'm super thankful for how well my second devlog ever did. But anyway, honestly, I hate 1000 Rooms. It's the first game I ever published, and it really shows. It's borderline an asset flip, it's unfun, and yet somehow it performed better than my most recent release, Sip and Sorcery. It's almost painful to think about. Sip and Sorcery was marketed better. I commissioned a trailer for it. Thanks, Riolo, you were amazing. It was actually a good game, and it took over twice as long to develop. I don't think Sip and Sorcery failed, though. It just didn't do as well as I hoped. I attribute 1000 Room's success mostly to genre. It's no secret that indie horror does incredibly well, and I even timed one of the major updates around Halloween. I'm not bitter though. I learned a lot from both projects, and now I get the chance to come back and actually earn that success by making the game better. The game is basically a walking sim with a handful of monsters, and it was spawned out of pure spite. Over 3 years ago, a friend recommended I play the game Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion, and it was a miserable experience. The movement felt clunky, most of the monsters were a joke, it broke when trying to alt-tab, and overall it was a horror game that was never scary and just tedious. I streamed the whole thing in a Discord with them, and at one point I outright said I could do better. While they didn't challenge me on this, I felt like I had to prove it, and 1000 Rooms was born. Before that, I had made several small game projects, but I never shared anything. Anyway, in order to fix the game, I need to know what's wrong with it. I started out by doing a whole playthrough, start to finish, and really taking note of all the terrible things I did, and reminding myself of the vision I originally had. My main findings are, the gameplay acts inconsistently, it has an erratic art style, and a lot of the game design choices I made are incredibly questionable. These are the 3 points I'll base this whole remaster or revamp off of. In everything I do, I want the experience to feel smooth, look consistent, and above all, just be fun. My first step is to start over. It's tough, but I delete the entire project, every model, every line of code, every texture, except for a few fonts and UI things. Literally years of work just gone. And immediately after, I had to make an important decision. Because this was my first game ever, I harassed several friends into playtesting it for me, and I took all their advice. But there was one comment that stood out to me, because it was one of the very few I ignored. One of my friends had a crappy laptop, and he lowered the resolution to 720p, and after checking his frame rate, he went back and turned it down to 144p, and said, quote,
I just think it looks better this way.
"At the time, I just kinda shrugged it off. The player could easily lower the resolution in settings if they wanted to. It was also a tad annoying to basically hear,
Your game looks better when you can see less.
however, looking back on it, I think there was a good idea there. I've made the decision to keep everything a little older looking and lower quality. This also makes a general art and modeling easier on me. I'm not sure how I'll manage it in the future, but for now I'll just set the resolution lower and start working. My first creation was just the main menu. It sounds silly, but a project doesn't feel right to me until it has a main menu. I made some basic textures for the floor, wall, and ceiling, and I even used later to make normal maps for it all, though I later adjusted them. If you're not familiar, normal maps are these weird purple looking textures that trick game engines into turning 2D textures slightly 3D. They basically just add slight bumps and ridges. With that super technical explanation done, I tested the textures by making the first room, and I think everything looks decent. It was a little bit annoying to make this room, but I'll fix that later. We have bigger problems. Maybe my terrific models and stunning textures tricked you, but I'm not actually good at art. Because of that, I like to get most of my modeling and texturing done at once when I work on a new game. I quickly played through the first 20 or so rooms and noted down what props I needed. For now, though, I just did the modeling and texturing for a torch, door, planks, bricks, vent, flashlight, ghost, ladder, and a table. Doing all this took several hours of time and several months off my life, but at least it's over. Sort of. Some of them look funky, but I'll just fix it later. Pretty much the most important part of this game is the player. I need nice smooth movement and a clean camera controller. Honestly, I just kinda stole the code from previous projects. It did take some bug fixing, however. With a player, props, and textures done, I need a better way to make rooms. In the original 1000 rooms, I used grid maps to make rooms, and I might as well use them again. I gotta stop and say, it really is shocking how much better with game development I am now compared to then. When I made 1000 rooms, I had to look up a tutorial on grid maps, and it took me a few tries to iron out all the kinks. Now, I just made it off of memory, and I got it perfect first try. Easily, it took 10% of the time and effort that I put in before. But enough reminiscing. The game needs an interaction system. Again, this is nothing new to me, and I whipped it up with minimal difficulty. While making that, I also made a GUI and made the door open so I could test all this. And it just works. Back to my earlier talk about downscaling the game for a retro look, there's a very big trick I left out. Most games end up faking the low quality effect via shaders, and while I might do that in the future, for now I just want to render at a lower quality. The issue with actually rendering the game at a lower quality is everything is low quality, including any text on the screen. This makes all the UI look terrible, so I need to make a scene manager. By adding an extra step between the screen and the game, I have a lot more control over the rendering process. I can basically just fork the game and the UI into two separate areas, one in 1080p and the other in whatever quality I want. Then stretch them back into 1080p if necessary and overlap them. But if I do this, I also have to change how scenes are loaded. I can't just move from the main menu to the game. I need to swap the main menu UI with the player GUI, and then swap the main menu background with the game itself. It's not a big deal to do all this, but it adds a little extra complexity. To test all this out, I need one last thing. I need a room loader. As the title suggests, there's a lot of rooms in this game, and we need to know which one to load next. Of course, I don't have near enough rooms yet to complete this script, so I'll just duct tape it together and worry about that later. I will, however, make 2 extra rooms, so it has something to load. Not to mention, I'll have to make the ever-present fader. No joke, I've made so many faders across all my projects, I swear I can make them with my eyes closed. Anyway, with all this done, technically speaking, the core game loop is done. There are rooms, doors, and you can walk around. All that's really missing is a ghost damage system, puzzles, special room, and jump scares, more props, saving and loading damage system, health props. So, I'm basically almost there. I want to thank you again for watching this devlog, and all the recent views, it's pretty crazy. I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and like the video and let me know any suggestions you have. I'll read all the comments. The next devlog should go back to Amazon, but I'll periodically release a 1000 Rooms revamped video. But thank you for watching.